This is Political Junkeez with Brian Howie.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome back to Political Junkeez, the podcast for those hooked on politics. Back for an encore. He knows where all the beautiful bodies are buried. He's a financial guru. He's a bookworm. He knows a lot about a lot of things. Michael Sartain.
Let me just say, I don't know where anyone is buried. Let me just go ahead and state that first. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we can't joke about things like
the
that.
The beautiful bodies are buried. Yeah, some of the bad ones, some of the good ones. And we're piping her in via the Political Junkeez satellite network. We're going to talk some military stuff and then get into other things. And so I have a couple of vets here with me, but she's coming in via remote. I don't even know where she is, but Rachelle LaFleur, how are you?
LaFleur, I'm good. How are you?
Can we say where you are geographically?
Michigan.
Wow, Michigan. See?
The Mitten State.
Are you in the UPA? Where on the mitten are you?
I am on the west side.
Okay.
The best
She's
side.
in an undisclosed location somewhere in Michigan.
Undisclosed.
Michael Sartain is 4 feet from me, and there we go. What can we be doing more for our military vets than saying thank you for your service?
Oh, man, that's such a loaded question. If I had to focus on anything as it relates to veterans, it would be the suicide rates and mental health and focusing on equality as it relates to that mental health. So no stigma associated to that, whether you're male or female. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the best way to put that.
I think that's good. We're going to get to that in a second, but one note on that. So we do hear the stat a lot. 23 suicides a day. Is that what it is? 22, 23?
22, yeah, 23.
Terrible. Obviously, one is terrible. But when you compare that to the regular population of that demo and of that age, it's not tremendously out of whack from the civilian number.
Right. Well, I think one of the issues is, and this is a little bit different because we're not talking about vets, but the suicide rate is higher at places like Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico, or it's worse in places like Wichita, Kansas, or places like that. I've always had a huge issue with the fact that you're going to take thousands of men and women and put them in austere locations and then expect their mental health to be okay. Like, well, human beings were not meant to be isolated like that. Because I remember being stationed at Elson Air Force Base in Fairbanks, Alaska, and being like, Jesus, man, living here, I would consider some really dangerous
So
stuff
it has
too.
more, even combat aside and all that, it's that starts the mental deterioration.
Well, it's also the world's going on around you without you. It's the first time I was deployed watching my girlfriend with some other dude and having on Facebook and having nothing I could do about it. And just sitting there like, oh man, this is it. And then my dad died. And I got sent my first deployment, and I just remember just feeling like looking at my friends having fun, and then just the world goes on. But we agreed to serve, so that's what we get.
It's volunteer incarceration.
Correct. We agreed to serve, so that's essentially what we do. But there is still so much we can do for people afterwards. Because here's one of the issues, and Rachelle, I'd love to know what you think about this. So many times we say the word, this person is crazy. It's very dangerous, right? Somebody had a bad experience in a relationship, and we say that the person that they were with is crazy. And the thing is, we have defined mental health issues with like type 2 personality disorders like sociopathy or narcissism or stuff like that. We have schizophrenia. We have all these different things that aren't just crazy. It's not one vanilla flavor of crazy. And I think that a lot of times we see homeless people on the street, and we just think, oh, that this person doesn't want to work. And we don't understand mental illness, man. But we're going to look, when you say 100 years from now, what are we going to look back at was the most barbaric thing about this society is that we threw people in jail that were mentally ill.
Yes.
We had homeless people that were mentally ill. Like there was a way to treat these things, and instead we let these people beg for money on the side of the street, and then they became drug addicts. And we thought it's because of they became drug addicts because these fucking voices they heard. They became drug addicts because of the anxiety that they were feeling, and we didn't understand. We thought they were criminals because they don't look like us. Sometimes they don't smell like us. Their teeth are missing, and we start thinking these people are bad. No, it's mental illness. That's one of the problems.
So when you do a tour, how long is a tour? 4 years?
So
6 years?
So for me, when we say a tour to the Middle East, are you talking about a sign up?
You sign up and you do.
Because I flew a KC-135. It was 7 years as a navigator. So you can do 2 sometimes enlisted. Actually, I should let Rachelle talk about this. But I for a pilot, it's 11 years. For a navigator, it's 7, and then for a regular officer in the Air Force, it's 4.
Okay. Mm-hmm. When you complete that, what do you get? Is there benefits? Is there pension? Is there health care? What do you get when you're done?
You get access to USAA. That's about it. Because I'm medically retired, I get access to everything still, and I get disability. But if you don't get disability, so I'm a retired captain. If I just got out normal, then I would not be retired, or had not done 20 years, I would not be retired. I would just be a former military officer. Does that make sense? Like they technically could bring me back into service.
How long? Well, you're a cop. You put in 20 years. A lot of places you get full pension and everything.
Correct.
What is it in the military? Is there a place where you get that?
After 20 years, you will get.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, boss.
Do you guys even need me here?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we just asked.
I'm just curious because there's.
Go ahead, Rachelle.
Because I'd be happy to. You guys can. I love this conversation, and I'd love to listen to it. Didn't know if you even need me here.
Yeah, we do.
We don't need anybody here, but we hope that you have some insight to contribute to this. So yeah.
Rachelle, can you talk to us about enlisting?
Well, enlisting, so I just did my 4 years, and I did 4 years because I wanted the GI Bill. So I joined because I tried to go to college and pay for that on my own. And I was 18 years old. And I am in a situation where my family made too much for me to get financial aid and not enough to pay for my college. So when I got the first bill as an 18-year-old child, that was overwhelming. And I kind of felt lost. I didn't want to start off my life as an adult that way. So I started seeking alternatives. And I actually was not going to join the Marine Corps. It was initially the Navy. But because of where I grew up, the only permanent recruiters that were there 24/7 were the Marine Corps and the Army. And so therefore, anytime I had to meet with a Navy recruiter, I had to wait for him to drive an hour north to come meet with me. And as I was sitting outside of his office, the Marine Corps recruiter saw me out there and said, "Have you ever considered the Marine Corps?" And admittedly, I said, "Cheerleaders don't join the Marine Corps." I was 18 and shall not be judged for that. And he said, "Let me show you otherwise." And essentially from that day forward, there was no alternative. It was the Marine Corps. And he built that into my head that it's the best of the best. And
how forthcoming were you with, I want to do this because I wanted for the GI Bill? Is that a good enough reason for them? Are they trying to get lifers, or you're just like, I'm here short term and this is my goal? We're a number. They have a number that they have to achieve. And I'm sure, I doubt there's any correlation between a recruiter and how long a service member stays in, but I guess I wouldn't know. I just know they just want you in.
They just want, you are a number. So okay. I could have said anything and he would have said, "Could you sign the dotted line? Are you healthy enough to join?" And I was. And the GI Bill does what? It gives you a certain amount of money, or it just says, if you want to go to college, we'll pay for everything? The GI Bill is absolutely phenomenal. It is quite honestly, I wouldn't say life-changing, but pretty close. So the GI Bill, I was originally Montgomery. Did I say that correctly? Montgomery. I don't know because nobody uses it. Yep. Nobody uses it. But so when you get out of the service, you have to go through a SEPs and TAPS class, at least for the Marine Corps, which is a separation class, essentially preparing you for the civilian lifestyle. And I remember one of the keynote speakers that came through said that actually you make more money on the Montgomery than you do the post 9/11. And then he did all of this, mathematical equations. And I was like, okay, well, at that point I had a 4-month-old. So I'll take whatever gives me the most money. Here's the key call out though. With the Montgomery, you have to front the money to your colleges. And then essentially each month you'd go through a certification with the VA. Got it. And that's when they issue the payments. I didn't have that money to front. So I had to borrow it, did it for 1 semester, and then I switched to post 9/11. When you make that switch, you can never go back. And if I had to say to a veteran today, don't even have to make that switch, go post 9/11, because you do the certification. So you sign up for your courses, you do the certification and they cover it. In addition, you also get funds towards your books based off of the number of credits that you have. And the last part about that is you get BAH based on where you're located.
Yes.
So to have all of those things and have my 4-month-old and just trying to figure out the civilian lifestyle, that was life-changing to me.
Did you consider staying in?
No.
What is your feeling about the Marine Corps from when your recruiter got you to go until now? Is it better, worse, different? Did you feel like you were sold a bill of goods? Like, how do you feel about the Marine Corps?
You didn't sell me on anything other than it's the best of the best. And I have that in my head. We say what we want, but I love my Marine Corps.
There you go.
That being said, the question of, were you going to be a lifer? So when I deployed, I did a year-long deployment. And at that time of deployment, I was one of the only females that did not have a child. And I saw these mothers away from their children and fathers. I don't want to discredit that. But for me personally, I can only speak as a female. I saw them away from their child for a year. And that's something that I could not do. And the reason why females have a tendency to get a bad rep is I feel like just not being honest with that, where if I was not willing to deploy, that means likely a male Marine or another female without children would take my place. And that's not something I was willing to do, if that makes sense.
But if you're doing this, to get college money, to me, maybe I'm lazy, that seems like a really hard path to get college money. Are there, how is that then if you're like, I'm just going to work for a few years and save up and then go to college? What is the benefit of doing that route? Is it more money? Is it faster money? Is it easier money?
I think it was also, I am from a family with a long lineage of veterans. And so, I'm an Army brat. I was born in Fort Bragg. So I already had that instilled in me. But I guess if I could give any perspective, and I don't know if it's really asking or answering your question, but the company that I work for now, I got the job 30 days out of the Marine Corps. And I've been there ever since. And I have a lot of coworkers that have been very transparent about the amount of debt that they're in.
Wow.
And we're talking, some of them, hundreds, $100,000. Okay. That's a mortgage payment. That is a house that you are already starting off with that debt. And so to me, yes, could you go to a community college and then it potentially be cheaper? Absolutely. And I would definitely recommend that. But to me, I think it was a combination of this lineage, having to find myself, and then college was always the key factor for me.
Okay. So back to another question. So somebody gets out of 4 years, 8 years, 11 years, generally speaking. And Michael, you said you were what? Retired? What is your classification?
I'm retired captain.
Okay. Somebody who just, that's it, I don't want to do this anymore. Or they did some combat and they're like, something happened. They don't get anything?
So you get a GI Bill, and then Rachelle, did you have anything? The loan, the home loan that you can get. That's also
it's home right now.
Yes, right. So I believe is it $250,000? I forgot what it is because I haven't even used mine. But
I can't recall.
Yeah,
I cannot recall. I just know for this home, my certificate covered all of it.
So you can get a VA. So here's the two things you would
right.
get. So you get like what she's talking about with the GI Bill, right? So here's the thing. Now consider in her situation, if I'm working to try to save money for college, I've also got to work to pay for my life.
Correct.
She's going to get the Marine Corps is going to feed you. The Marine Corps is going to and house you to some extent. And she talked about BAH. You also get housing allowance. So, and then on top of that, you get the 40,000-50,000 whatever for the loan.
Right. So you are fairly well positioned,
and you leave the Marine Corps. Like if she came in to work for a company that I own,
that's a plus.
And she's an NCO in the Marine Corps. That's going to be a huge plus for me.
Okay, so why are so many then people who do a tour or finish their time have so much trouble transitioning?
Well, actually, I want to hear what Rachelle has to say about this because I have my own theory. What do you think, Rachelle? Why do you think people have trouble transitioning?
Because of the structure?
I think it's the structure, and I think it's the mental health. Essentially, when you are in, that is a family.
Yes.
Whether you've had a family, a lot of people actually joined. A lot of my fellow Marines joined because they're seeking the opportunity to have a family that they never had. And you get it. You automatically get it, for better or worse, whether you're a shitbag, and I'm sorry if you have to bleep that out, but if you're a shitbag, it doesn't matter. That's my brother. That's my sister. And
that's actually my name on Instagram, shitbag. So we're fine with that.
And then also there's this mental health component of it. And there's a tendency, there's a tendency to equate mental health illness with combat experience. That is so inaccurate.
Right. That's what Michael said. Yeah.
I can personally speak to that. And so especially, and I'm going to give a shout out to my male Marines or male service members in general. It's almost as if you served when I served, but you didn't have a combat deployment, your mental health is irrelevant. You don't have PTSD from combat. Does that make sense? But there's so many other things that we experience.
How many people go into the military, though, because they need structure or they have some challenges going in, and so when they come out, it's going to be either the same or even worse?
Well, yeah. So I've definitely seen that. I have a friend of mine who has severe anxiety. He joined the Air Force. He did really well in the Air Force and got out, and he needed the structure. One of my favorite books about entrepreneurship is called The E-Myth Revisited, and they talk about the three types of business people: the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. The Marine Corps will teach you to be a technician. The Marine Corps will teach you to be a manager to some extent, but the Marine Corps and the U.S. Air Force, they're not really teaching you to be super creative. Does that make sense? So for some people, I think the adjustment might be that, on top of the fact that, like she said before, you have a family. Like, it is really crazy for me, Brian, being in a squadron where everyone showed up on time. Because if you didn't come to work and you didn't call in, they were sending the police for you. Yeah. You understand? And now I deal with people who are under the age of 30, and they're just like, completely blow me off. I have an incredible offer for them. Completely blow me off. Do not respond to anything. And then they're just later, they come up and talk to me like everything's okay. And I'm like, are you a sociopath? Like, what is going on here, man? And this ethic that I see is very different. When I was in the military, you show up on time. You know what I'm saying? That's what, and so when I see that, the other thing is, I'm going to talk about the other thing she said. So I flew an airplane. I was a navigator in an airplane in over Iraq and Afghanistan. So I cannot say I was not shot at. Nobody was firing at me with an AK-47. So for me, when I saw a lot of people suffering from mental illness from being away from their family, and like what she said before, I actually know two young ladies who were sexually assaulted when they were in the military. That is not combat experience. That is still stuff that can cause PTSD that has nothing to do with being combat experience. But what happened was in the 1980s when we watched Full Metal Jacket, and we watched some of those movies where people were suffering from mental illness, basically dealing with Vietnam. That's what we talked, the 1,000-yard stare. That's what we thought mental illness was. That's what we thought PTSD was. So I agree with her completely. I think the misdiagnosis of mental illness is the biggest problem here, is that we just don't see that these people, it's not that they don't want help. They can't get help. There's no, like, they don't even know that they need help in some cases. And so I think that's where a lot of this is going to start.
Yeah. Rachelle, what were the challenges of being a woman in the military? If anything, from the real world. I mean, is there anything different from just being a woman in anything else, or is military unique?
So that's interesting because let me choose my words carefully here. It's definitely. All right. I'm gonna PR here for a second. I guess here's the best way I can define it. So obviously when I was in from 2009 to 2013. And sexual assault was something that the Marine Corps specifically, and I apologize, I'm not trying to make this branch specific. I can only give my truth. And during that time, there was a huge push to focus on sexual assault because it was so heightened at that point. And so there was all these courses we had to go through, and, I'd be sitting in these presentations, and I'd be one of, 70 males in there. And I'll never forget that one of the speakers for one of those courses, it was either a female captain or a major. I can't recall her rank. And she said to me, I want you to know that throughout my entire career, of every rank that I possessed, I have been sexually harassed, and I've also gone through sexual assault. And that's something that I would say I've personally experienced, but I guess that's the best way that I can summarize that. It is literally every single rank. I have been sexually harassed by majors. I have been sorry, I don't want to go on a tangent.
If you don't want to talk about this, if you don't want to get like too specific, because I definitely know.
Well, what was it like? There aren't that many female. What is the ratio when you were around?
So the ratio is higher in the Air Force. We have more females as a percentage than the Marine Corps. Marine Corps would probably be the lowest. We also have the highest percentage of officers compared to enlisted because we have so many flyers. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more of a corporate middle management type of environment. But I had an intel officer I would go joke with every day, and she was really funny. She would post these like cartoons in our intel brief or whatever, and she wore this titanium wedding ring, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. How long you been married?" She's like, "I'm not fucking married." She's like, "I wear this thing to keep these people off me." Was that what you did, too?
To this day.
Yeah. I care that she's like, I would have this wedding ring to keep these motherfuckers off me. That's what she told me. And I was like, man, that's horrible. And I just remember seeing this whole thing and just being like, this is.
Are you allowed to date? Can you ask somebody else?
So for me, it's really funny because one of my close friends, she was an NCO in the Marine Corps, and I'm a captain, and we always joke. She's like, "Hey, I love you, Sergeant," and she's like, "I love you, Captain," just to like piss people off because if we were still in, it would be against the rules. But the situation is, yes, you are allowed to date, but if they're too far above or below you in your same chain of command, it is highly frowned upon. And if you're enlisted in their officer, then that's fraternization, and in that case, it is illegal. So you're not allowed to do that. But if you show up, they tell you the story, Rachelle. If you show up and a captain's married to a sergeant one day, they're just automatically married and they don't tell you anything. Then the Air Force just lets it happen. But right, they just poof, you were just married. Because once you're married, you're home free. I know sergeants that are married to captains. So my homegirl Sharice Bagura, she just enlisted and her husband's a captain. So yeah, that I see that happen all the time.
But it's like going to a boys' school with a handful of girls, right? I mean, is it 10-1 or is it 3-1?
So for us, it would be 8, maybe 20, 30-1, something like that.
And Rachelle, what was it for you?
I would say, so if I was looking at my platoon, there was probably 40 people in the platoon, and I think there was 3 females. And this is one of the biggest things that I'll say because there's so many stereotypes. But you have to recall a few factors. And I look at it differently now that I'm a 32-year-old woman, because admittedly I had a lot of shame in it, but I shouldn't have. So one, I joined when I was 18 years old. A lot of the people I served with were around that age. So you're hormonal, you are going, through all these, I wouldn't say changes, but you're still experiencing that. 2, you're away from your family. So to have attention, whether it's from somebody that you should receive it from or not, you're going to gravitate towards that. 3, because I just explained the ratio, I always tell males, think of it if it were the opposite way. So I'm hormonal, I'm 18 years old, and I'm surrounded by attractive males. Mm-hmm. What would happen if that was flipped and the military was all attractive females?
It would be like living in Vegas. Like working at a pool in Vegas. Yes. Let me tell you firsthand. I've been on both sides of it.
Yeah.
8% of the Marine Corps are female. I just looked it up. So it's about 12 or 13-1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you? So you're in a position where you want to balance that. You don't want to have anybody, be untoward towards you, but part of you're 18 years old and you're like, oh, there's cute guys here. How do you balance that? Because you can't just shut that off both ways,
You don't. I was I did anything that you would expect to do. I guess the saving grace in some sense is that, so the individual that I'm going through a separation with at this point, I met him 2 years into my enlistment. And so I was dedicated to him. But I still went through everything that I'm sure a lot of females go through and we get a bad rep for. And it's not justified. But it's not something that Rachelle can change or females speaking about it. This is a cultural discrepancy.
What would and I know it's different since both of you have been in it, but what is the thing that people who've not been in the military that you were surprised to find out once you were in there? Is there something that you're like, this is a lot different, better, worse than I thought it would be?
Well, so I think for me, the accountability that you have towards other people is one thing. But the other thing is, like, I remember when a general would come visit and we would throw shit in the closet and everybody had to, shine their shoes and all this kind of stuff. And I remember, she's laughing right now because she knows what I'm talking about. And I was like, man, if I was a general in the U.S. military, I wouldn't know shit, because every single time I show up somewhere, I get the fakest, most, cake icing version of whatever unit I'm visiting, and I don't get to see anything. And people want to come up and talk to you, right? So for instance, a general comes up and you're just like, and you want to tell him, like, hey man, this is fucked. We don't have enough food here. You can imagine a general walking through Da Nang back in 1968, and some 03 walks up to him and is like, General, this is terrible. We shouldn't be here. Blah blah blah, whatever. And this guy is like court-martialed afterwards. So like you can imagine how that was one of the things that I noticed. And then the other thing is there are so many great lessons that you do learn. I know from being an Air Force officer, I deal with things at the lowest possible level, and I have learned to be not passive aggressive in my communication. If I have a problem with someone, I tell them immediately what the problem is and try to figure it out. But that is probably one of the things. But the shock actually isn't joining the military. The shock for me was getting out and then moving to Vegas and meeting people who literally flow through life because they're attractive and then literally have no accountability for anything else that's going on. That to me has been the biggest change. And then seeing some of those people succeed because they're good looking or because they're popular. They succeed and they get there's no accountability, no integrity whatsoever. I can't imagine. I don't want to work with people who don't have integrity.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I miss from being in the U.S. military.
Rochelle, same question. What was different, better, worse than what you thought going? You came from a military family, so you had some information on it. What's different from the movies? What's different from when you were in there? You're like, this is, the same, better, worse, different.
So again, I'm going to speak to this as my truth as a female Marine.
Sure.
The level of camaraderie from my platoon, they were my brothers. And that's something that I'll never experience again, where you just have each other's backs. And yes, they'd always try to push the boundaries. But when it was pretty well established that there was no pushing of it, it was immediate just kinship with them that to this day, actually, I just made a post about one of the Marines that I served with, and he is a DI at Paris Island. And I am so incredibly proud of this human being. He's incredible. But that's something that I almost feel like now that I'm a veteran and I've been out for quite a few years now, you're constantly seeking that from human beings, and there's no other comparison. So I was just telling somebody this, to give you an idea. I could meet somebody off the street, and we talk about branch specific a lot, but virtually any service member or veteran, I can talk to them automatically. I won't do that to a stranger, but I will talk to them. And yes, if it's a Marine, I understand a little bit more. So that kinship is just a little bit greater. But it could be any veteran. And that's something that when I have a nonprofit and people talking about, why did you do this? That's a lot of it, because these are my brothers and sisters, and I can meet you on the street and I don't know you, but we automatically have this understanding that nobody else really understands. Well, I use that twice, but anyway, I think that was the biggest thing for me. Is I had no expectation. I was raised in a family that's very close. So I'm not that type of veteran that joined and didn't have, a strong background. Man, I just feel like I'm going on tangents over.
No, it's
that's
beautiful.
okay.
And can you talk to us about the Enduring campaign?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Now?
Yeah,
Go.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
how about it?
All right. So the Enduring campaign is an official 501c3. Sorry, my kid is texting me, my 8-year-old child, by the way. So the Enduring campaign is a 501c3, and our primary focus is on veteran transitional centers and supporting the veterans that are part of their programs. So first and foremost, a lot of veterans don't even know that transitional programs exist. In fact, we've gotten questions in our DMs of, is a transitional program about a sex? Like I'm transitioning to a different sex.
Oh, okay. That's different.
Yep.
I've never
We've
heard that
gotten
one.
that question, and that's not at all what it is. It's essentially transitioning veterans into the civilian lifestyle. And or not lifestyle, the life, I guess.
Civilian life.
But yeah. But here's the thing. A lot of the veterans in these programs are Vietnam vets. A lot of people think that it's newly separated. That is not the case. It is Vietnam vets primarily. I mean, you'll have a mixture, but that has been the core demographic of those that participate in these programs. And essentially what these programs do, it's not just focusing on, let's get them ready for civilian lifestyle. It's focusing on substance abuse. It's focusing on mental health. It's focusing on advocacy for the VA. So do you know what you deserve, and how do you go about doing that? Because for a lot of veterans, the VA is very intimidating, including myself. I have 0 claims with the VA. And then also, and most importantly, giving them shelter and ultimately graduating them throughout throughout this process of, okay, we have shelter type housing. Then you go into more independent housing when you have the income to support it. A lot of transitional centers, in fact, all of them that we work with are VA funded, but there's always a cap on funding. And so a lot of the needs of the transitional centers, they are reliant on the community. But when a community doesn't know that they exist, a lot of them struggle. And that's where the Enduring campaign really focuses, is let us know what your veterans need.
Yeah.
And we will do everything that we possibly can to fulfill that.
Yeah, those guys are in their 60s and 70s, and they do need a lot of help. But let's talk about the ones who are getting out now. Does the military, or do we as a society need to do better when it comes to the transition before they get out or after they get out? Where is the lack of support? Obviously, if you do better job before people get out, it's going to make it easier. But where do the resources need to? Where are we lacking? We're probably lacking on both sides. But where does the focus need to go?
I personally think it's the diagnosis of what's actually going wrong. I'm curious, actually, Rachelle, you said something I want to know. So I go to the VA all the time. There's 4, I believe we have 4 clinics here. We have Nellis Air Force Base. And then we have the hospital up on Pecos, which is, I think it's a magnificent hospital. What is it that was intimidating to you about a VA claim? Was it complicated, or was it just something that you just felt, what was the problem? I'm just curious.
It wasn't complicated from my perspective. It was just that there is such a negative connotation about
how
the VA treats that it's almost intimidating to me, to the point where, hold on, my 8-year-old's going to keep coming up because he's upset about something. But so for me, I've been to Afghanistan. I'm a female and I served. So the VA has tried to get me to participate into a lot of studies, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you almost feel like, and they'll incentivize you. They'll say, "Oh, you do this." And,
they do a lot of schizophrenia studies.
Give you money. And so that was something that turned me off, is I almost felt like I'm just a study case, and I didn't want that. So I just haven't gone through any of that.
Right. So back to the question, though. We need to devote more resources before people get out or have them available after they give out? I know you can say both, but where are we lacking?
This is really
for
tough.
the current
I
service.
remember a lot of transitional stuff when I do. Rachelle, do you remember the "Don't beat your wife" brief when you come home?
Well, she didn't have a wife.
No. That's what they called us. I went in there, and I know Marines. They told me the same thing. When you come back from a deployment, they give you a briefing about when you go and see your wife for the first time, because there was so much infidelity with when you come back home. And people would get angry, and this chaplain comes in and he goes, "Yes, this is the 'Don't beat your wife' brief." And I was like, "What? What do you?" I didn't have a wife at the time, obviously, and I just remember that they try to transition you. They do. The problem is that the one size fits all manner doesn't really work. It's one of these situations where you need something different for different people.
Yeah, some people are going back to a family and a structure. And some people went into the military because they never had those things.
Yeah, for me, I came out and I had job prospects and some real estate investments, so I was good. And I tried to help some of my friends when I got out. Some of my other friends, they got out, and it just became a situation to where they needed I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but they needed the structure, right? And they got into some bad stuff because of it. So I don't know. I just don't think it's a one size fits all kind of deal. This is a really hard question to solve. I think afterwards, should there be transitional things that can help you? They can help you with, for sure. As far as what she's talking about with housing, that is a no brainer. Obviously, if somebody served in the military and they're sitting there in a situation where it has gotten so dire that they do not have a place to live, of course there should be something for that. And I don't know.
Well, that depends too. Everybody's military experience is different.
Yes.
You know, if you were down in Pendleton and you worked behind a desk, and then 20 years later you found yourself, should the government,
yes.
But you signed the dotted line that a lot of people would not be willing to sign. So, and that is the problem right there and that's going back to something that I said. Your correlation to combat experience does it have a factor? Absolutely. And I have an immense amount of appreciation for those that have been through combat, but that's the mentality that has to change. Is I sat behind a desk, so I'm not deserving of what this country can offer their veterans. That's bullshit. You signed a line that so many people are not willing to sign, no matter what the reason is. So they should have the access to benefits that everybody else does. Now, being very sensitive that if you do have combat experience and you have physical injuries for that, that's different to me. And that's not what I'm saying. But what I am ultimately saying is if we look at the statistics of who joins and how many Americans actually join the U.S. military, every single one of them should be represented as far as housing, a livelihood in the civilian lifestyle, because we signed that dotted line.
Okay, that's fair. Last word, Michael?
I'm just going to say this again. I am so proud of the people that I served with. I still talk to them. I know one of the craziest things that happened. I'm 43 years old. And when I see some dude that I saw drunk in a bar sometime and he's got promoted to 06, I'm like, 06, bro, right? I'm like, we are kids. Dude, they let the kids run the squadron now. Dude, there is no way this guy is an 06, bro. I feel so old when my friends are lieutenant colonels. That is crazy to me, but I'm just so proud of them. And it's a brotherhood that you get to be a part of. So I would tell anybody who's listening to this, it is a gift if you join the military. It is a privilege if you join the military. Almost all of us, and maybe there are individual examples where you had a bad, squadron commander or something like that. But for the most part, I found that it was a gift, and it has definitely given me massive advantages in life since I've gotten out. And I will also say that, yes, I'm a person that I also think, here's the thing, Brian, a lot of people are going to get into the military with predispositions for mental illness. Then they're going to be in the military, then they're going to get out, and then mental illness is going to manifest. And so we need to take, like she said before, we need to take, we got to take care of our warriors, because we're not going to have any more warriors, right? I think that might be the simplest way to state it.
Yeah, the worst advertising for getting in the military is see how we treat people on the back end.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Rachelle, final thought?
Ooh, final thought. I agree with this. And also, again, going back to my truth. So one of the things that was mentioned is, some people separating are prepared for civilian lifestyle. But if I'm looking back at my truth and a lot of who I served with, which would be lower ranking Marines, is that we all joined around this time frame where we're 18, 19 years old. we don't have a college degree. A lot of us are suffering from mental illness, whether it has a direct correlation to the military or just happened to be part of our military experience. But it's almost like these odds, there's a lot of odds stacked against you, but there's a lot of resources that I feel like veterans don't know. And I've talked about veteran transitional centers, but that is so, there are so many resources. And I think that needs to be the focus of what are the resources that are available to our veterans, whether it's to find a job, to find housing, to find mental health, care, whatever the case may be. There's so many nonprofits out there. There's so many organizations that exist to support virtually any veteran. And I think that's the final thing that I want to say is I'm not here just promoting my NPO. I'm talking about all of these incredible organizations that exist to support those that have served, no matter the capacity that they served in. So
this was fun, you guys. As a civilian, I know I always have a lot of questions. I know I don't understand. You guys did a really good job of laying it out and painting a good picture. We thank you for your service.
Of course.
Both of you and all of you out there. As far as us, again, as always, like, share, subscribe, and please review Political Junkeez on all your platforms. Your reviews mean a lot in the podcasting world. And we will see you next time right here on Political Junkeez.
Rachelle, come visit us in Vegas.